Now that you have learned how to work with variables in JMeter and how to add regular expressions, we will see how we use the information that we extracted with the regular expressions in our script by referencing the variables that contain those values. We'll be recording with JMeter the action of selecting a product from the OpenCart site, the same action we recorded with Fiddler in our previous session. Just as a note, I would like to remind you that we will be using Fiddler to analyze the responses from the server, but when we want to add actions to our script, we will do it in JMeter. So let's go to JMeter to record this. In previous sessions, we have already recorded the loading of the site and searching for an article, so now we just need to add the article selection. As you've seen before, we need to add a recording controller, which we'll name Select an Item. We will add a test script recorder to the workbench and indicate the server, and we can start recording. Here I've already done the search for an iPhone, so we just need to select the product and record the action. Once it finishes loading, we'll go back to JMeter and stop recording. Let's now put the controllers back in order. First we load the page, then we do the search and then select the item. So let's analyze what was recorded. In the first request, we can see that it has the product ID, as we saw before in Fiddler. Note also that JMeter has already replaced the search parameter with the user variable we created for the search. We can see here that we have a few static requests, photos and style sheets. So let's delete them, as we know that they can be triggered by selecting the Retrieve Embedded Resources option. We will only keep the dynamic requests. In this second request, we can also see the product ID. Then we have a few requests that are made to other servers, as we can see here. So let's delete all the ones that are not directed at OpenCart. We will now replace the value of the product ID in all the requests with a variable extracted with the regular expression. This is what we call variable correlation. We will be extracting the value from a server response and then use it in following requests. So let's look for all the places in which the product ID appears and we replace it with the variable. As we've seen before, to use the variable in JMeter, we'll put the name inside brackets, preceded by a $sign. When we're finished doing this, we'll add assertions to our requests. To do this, we'll use the Fiddler recording to inspect the responses from the server. Let's go to the first request of this user action. What we will validate is how the product ID comes in the response. So let's search for it in the Fiddler response. And there we can see it. So let's copy this. And going back to JMeter, we will add a response assertion for the first request. We will be validating the text response. And we will copy the product ID, replacing the value with the variable. For the second request, we will only validate that the head tag comes, since the rest of the text will change if the product has reviews. So let's copy that and add a response assertion to the second request and copy that text. For the last request, we will see that there's no text coming in the response. So we will validate the response code 204. So going back to JMeter, let's add an assertion, and in this case we're going to be checking the response code. I'll be checking that it equals 204. So let's run the test. We can see that the regular expression matched correctly, since in the URL we'll be able to see that the product ID was replaced by the value. We can check that in all our requests. Now let's try changing the search parameter to verify that the product ID also changes. So we'll search for a MacBook on the site. Let's run the test. There we can see that the search parameter changed and that the responses are correct. And here we can see that the product ID changed, which means the regular expression now took the product ID from the new selection of the product. Now we'll see what happens when there is an error with the regular expression. We'll introduce an error by adding a space to the expression that we were using, and let's see what happens when we run the test. So when we run the test, we can see that it fails. So if we have a look at the variable product ID, we can see that it took the default value not found. So this is what happens when the expression doesn't match the response from the server. This is a good thing to know for when we're debugging our scripts. So now you have learned how to use the information extracted with regular expressions in following requests.